Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the blood supply in the brain. So I'm going to be mostly using this diagram here. Okay, and I'll also be using this diagram to just show like where in the brain this lies. So it's going to be underneath the brain. So I'll probably be using mostly this one. So I want to start off by talking about the internal carotid artery, which is going to be in this part of this little artery. So it's going to lead to the petrous portion of the brain right here. And it's going to bifurcate into two other arteries. So it's going to bifurcate into the anterior cerebral artery right here. And then the middle cerebral artery right here. So the anterior is going to lie on the top and the middle is going to lie on the side, and they mostly supply the cerebellum. I want to talk about the vertebral artery, which is going to be right here at the bottom. My pen is this one. And the vertebral artery is going to have three different branches. So one branch is going to be the superior cerebral artery, and the superior cerebral artery is going to be this one right here. And that's going to arise from the basilar artery, which is going to be this one right here. And then it's also gonna, the two other branches that it's part of is gonna be the pontine artery and the internal auditory artery. So the pontine artery is gonna be the ones right here in the middle. And then, what did I just say? The internal auditory artery, which is gonna be here at the bottom. Okay. And then the basilar artery, which basilar artery is gonna be right here. I want to talk about, it's going to bifurcate into two different cerebral arteries, and it's going to also be level with the midbrain. So let's talk about the posterior inferior cerebellar arteries. So the posterior cerebral artery is going to be the bottom one here. Yes, the bottom one here. So right here, that one's going to be, it's going to supply the medulla and the inferior surface of the cerebellum. Okay, the anterior cerebellar artery is going to be this one right here. Right here. And that one's going to supply the caudal pons, and it's also going to supply the anterior portion of the inferior surface of the cerebellum. Okay, let's talk about the internal auditory artery, which is going to be this one right here at the bottom, right here. I have to like draw it in a little, but the internal auditory is going to be on both sides of the skull, so it's going to be the cochlea. It's going to supply the inner ear for hearing. The pontine arteries is going to supply the pons, and that's going to be here in the middle. And then let me talk about there's one more, the posterior cerebellar artery, and that's going to supply the occipital lobe. And the posterior cerebral artery is going to be this part of this diagram right here, and that also leads to deeper, like not just the occipital lobe, like everything in it, so like the thalamus and things like that. So that's the blood supply and its functions and how it gets to the brain.